guys, and welcome to this episode of the Bad Idea Bros. So in the last couple of episodes you've seen us working pretty hard to get Josh's little blue scooter going, which is finally up and ready. So now that that's done, that means that we can work on mine. I'm doing it solo today. Josh has other commitments unfortunately, but that's fine. My scooter was a little more expensive than Josh's initially, but it does appear to be in better condition, so hopefully. Like I said in the other episodes, mine does start and run. That's a half truth. It does start, it does kind of idle, but then it seems to fuel up and just kill itself. So the carburetor is definitely something I'm going to have a look on this one. But the plan for today is pretty much just to take all the plastics off, have a bit of a deeper look at the bike. I mean, the trip that we're planning to do with these things is going to be a bit of a mission, so I want to make sure this thing's going to make it. It should be pretty straightforward though, so it's going to be a lot of disassembly today and a bit of inspection. Hopefully not too much work. I will give everything a bit of a clean over just to make sure that it's up to scratch and just give it a really good once over. That's basically the plan for today. So I'll stop chewing you guys' ears off and I'm going to get into this thing. I'm really excited. Alright, so obviously not a heck of a lot involved in getting the plastics and the seat off these things. All 10mm fasteners, so that's nice and easy. Now, straight off the bat, I can see that the drive belt cover is in really poor condition. It's not uncommon for the carburetors to leak, which you can see a bit of moisture around there, which obviously strips all the paint and whatnot on the covers. So that's a small job that I'd like to do. Not super important, but I do want to get this bike looking as good as possible. One thing I've just noticed is because there is moisture here, that could be part of the problem with my carburetor. I can also see that there's some adhesive, like Sikaflex or something similar, used on the air intake here. If that's sucking air where it shouldn't be, that can also be an issue with the idle. One of the main causes though is this electronic choke or electric choke. These things give out on the Nifty 50s really easily. Basically what it is, instead of having a choke cable that you pull to restrict the flow of air and increase the flow of fuel, it's got a needle in here just that drops down in this point, and that's controlled by this electric solenoid. Now they do give out. There is a way to test that and I will do that later. But generally speaking, it's not in too bad a condition. Like I said, it does run, just not well. It's quite dark on this side, but hopefully you can see that the exhaust is also really not in the best nick. So that's probably something else that I'm going to have to do some work on. But generally speaking, this one's not too bad. Certainly a better starting point than some of the other ones we've worked with. But there's a bit of damage on the rear wheel as well. It's actually a huge dent in the rim there. And another one there as well. And you guys probably can't see this on the camera, but that's a really buckled rim. Okay, so that's also a problem. But generally speaking, guys, it's not too bad. It's a good starting base. So from here, I'm going to pull all the plastics off. It's got the plastic engine cover or cylinder cover as well. I'll check all that out. Just want to get a better view of it. This side cover is going to come off so I can have a look at the belt and the pulleys. I may as well pull the exhaust off as well, just because that's pretty haggard and needs some work. So let's carry on with this. Alright guys, so before I pull anything off like the exhaust that would stop me starting this bike, I'm just going to do a final check on the battery. I know it's toast, but just because I like to be thorough with these things. So essentially all I'm going to do is chuck the multimeter across the terminals, and that will give me a voltage reading on the screen, which I'll do now. Got one on the positive, one on the negative. 11.9 volts, 11 thereabouts. So basically, because this is a 12 volt system, that should be 12 volts and above. That might be enough to get the bike to kick, but I highly doubt that it's going to start. But just to prove point, we'll turn the key on. Brake needs to be engaged on these ones to start. I don't think this is going to do anything other than click. Yeah, so that's a toast battery. I'm going to have to buy a new battery for this anyway. These old lead acid batteries aren't the best. I'm going to find a gel battery for this. But that's point proven, so we can ditch this one and carry on with the strip down. So that's basically got everything stripped off that I want it to be. Good news is that the belt is a Honda genuine and looks to be in pretty good condition actually, reasonably new. The gearing, everything looks okay. There is a bit of crap in the case, but that's to be expected. Basically, there's a lot of build up. It's going to be the case. There's nothing you can do about that. It's an older bike. There is also a lot of rubbish on top of the case and all that, so to get a really good look at everything, check the condition of the gaskets and whatnot. Basically the plan is to give it all a clean. You can see just how much accumulated rubbish is in there from it's 80, 85, 86 model, so 35 years of use, thereabouts. It's going to need some love. So I'm going to give that all a bit of a clean now that everything's off. Unfortunately, I think I've discovered the problem of my lack of power, and it's not necessarily anything to do with the carburetor. So I'm going to have to pull the whole assembly out of the bike now because of what I've found. It's a bit hard to film, so I'm just going to time-lapse the removal of this. I'll get it onto my workbench and show you guys why I'm going to the effort of pulling this apart now. Alright guys, so now I've got the power plant out of the scooter's frame. You might be wondering why I've gone to the effort of pulling this whole thing out. Well, obviously it's dirty, that's neither here nor there. But what I noticed and couldn't really show you guys on camera is this staining here and here. What that is indicating to me is that this motor is losing cylinder pressure. So there's a wee gasket that goes under the cylinder head here. If you guys remember on Josh's build, We did have the gasket on that, and there's also a gasket that goes under the bore. Because there's so much leak by on there, I can only assume that those gaskets have failed. That could have a lot to do with why the motor isn't really performing, why it's lost pressure, that sort of thing. It's not the end of the world. It does just mean that I need to buy a kit. There are gasket kits readily available for these, so I will order one offline and wait for it to come. In the meantime, I do have some other jobs that I can move on to, so I will still clean this. The whole thing needs to be cleaned, so I'll take the carburetor off. That's its own job. I'll basically clean that out, check the float, make sure the needle and everything's fine, main jet should be fine. All the crud that's in here on the drive case of the motor as well as the motor itself, I'm just basically going to give that all a really good clean. You can see that the starter motor is covered in all sorts of crud, and the oil pump appears that it might be leaking, so that'll be another gasket that needs to be done. All in all, though, it doesn't look too bad. It's an older motor, so it does need some work. And coming back to the electric choke on here, this is something else that I'll test. Basically, all you do is put 12 volts onto this thing and give it some time to see if the needle adjusts its length, which is how it should operate normally. If it works, then it's good. If it doesn't work, then it's going to need replacing. So, yeah, I guess I'll get into cleaning this and looking at doing another couple of small jobs. Well guys, that's about as far as I can go with this one today. Obviously it turned into a bit bigger of a job than I had anticipated, but that's the way it goes with these things sometimes. So I will order a gasket kit for the bike so that I can rebuild the motor. It actually looks okay other than the worn gasket, so I'm not too stressed. I'm pretty sure a set of gaskets thrown at it and this thing will be good to go again. Other than that, I've got a lot of cleaning to do. I'm starting to formulate a bit of an idea in regards to what I'm going to do with the wheels. The rear one's completely haggard, so I'm going to have to find a replacement for that and go from there. But still lots to do, and I thank you as always for following along with the journey, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.